Hello, this is David Barker, producer-director for Creatus Media, and today is Friday, July 31st, and I'm here with Dr. Shana for Ask Dr. Shana. Shana, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, last time we talked about thinking of all the things for which one is grateful as a means of controlling anxiety. And I'm going to talk more today about other methods which don't involve seeing a doctor and which do not involve taking medication for controlling anxiety. There are many different methods of, basically the idea is to focus one's thinking on something else than the particular item which is causing the anxiety. Now, some people do this with prayer, which can be extremely effective. Unfortunately, it only really works with people who believe in the God they're praying to. There are various types of meditation which can be used, and remember, the idea is to broaden your focus. Instead of focusing on one forthcoming event or one particular one particular item coming up, or the fact that your bank balance is very low, or one little aspect of your life, to think more broadly. As for example, financially, I'm not doing very well because of COVID-19 and all the mess it's made. But my family and I are getting along excellently, and focus on what a good family life you have. I don't mean to discourage anybody from dealing with the difficult things, but somehow dealing with something that's a problem can become a lot easier if you don't see your whole life as a problem. I thought of an analogy this morning which seems to me particularly apt. I'm reminded of a friend who had quite a collection of long playing records. And there was one record of Beethoven symphonies which it took well over an hour to play the whole record. And the end of the symphony, something fairly typical of Beethoven's time, was the same chord played 5 times in a row with a little pause between those 5 times. On the 4th time that the chord is repeated, there was a 1-second scratch on the record. The last time the final chord was repeated, there was no scratch. But he would sit anxious for nearly an hour in anticipation of that 1-second scratch. And
I want to just jump in here because some of the people who may be listening aren't really actually familiar with long playing records, but those are the vinyl recordings. And when you had these vinyl records, they could easily get just a little ding on the surface, and that would cause the music to be interrupted and go or
make a noise.
Yeah, make some
that's not written into the music.
Yeah, very very distracting. But anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that there are people who don't know.
For the younger audience.
And the thing is, he would spend nearly an hour knowing that it wouldn't come until almost the very end. Nevertheless, he was waiting for that scratch. And I did suggest to him, in those days, vinyl long playing records were very common, that he buy another record so he wouldn't spend his time waiting for the scratch. And people who have any marked anxiety can be, in essence, waiting for the scratch. In other words, you're facing a big exam and it's coming up in 5 days. Some people will spend the whole 5 days either not getting out of bed or just being a nervous wreck because the exam is coming. My antidote for pre-exam anxiety was always think about when it's going to be over. If the exam goes from 10 a.m. to noon, think that at 1 o'clock you'll be having lunch, which is a lot pleasanter, and it'll all be in the past, and well or not so beautifully well that you do on it, it will be, as they say, in the can.
I've got a question. So, is it better to kind of refocus your anticipatory thoughts, or is it really better just to kind of like say, well, there's nothing I can do about this right now, and focus more on what's happening right then and what you're facing right then and there, and do anything that may be advantageous for you. So if it's a test, well, you could study, and that might not only refocus your thinking away from the future, but actually do something constructive to take care of whatever issue you're concerned about.
I think what you're saying is one and the same thing. Focus away from the anxiety.
Right, yeah.
Focus on study. I was the type of person who would be studying months in advance because I didn't want to feel last minute pressure on me. Focus on when the exam is going to be over, but do something other than focus on something's coming up and it's making me incredibly anxious.
So you mentioned prayer is one for people who have belief in a God or a supreme being. Meditation is another one. Are things such as maybe artwork or exercise, or what other things can people do to kind of refocus?
Oh, regular exercise is a very good idea. I would caution people when they feel anxious about something that's going to happen in a few days to go, not to go wild on the exercise, because they may physically wear themselves out. I've known that to happen to a number of people. If you have something coming up, such as, well, this is the last exam I have to take before summer vacation, and you're going to be somewhere fun for summer vacation, think about that. And I'm not saying think about that to the exclusion of finishing what you had planned for your study regime. But I'm just saying, anything that gets you away from focusing your mind on how anxious you are, it can be something as simple as, this is one of those big exams which has an effect on a person's future, and of course everybody's anxious just before it. That's normal. And I had a classmate in medical school who would work himself up into such a state of anxiety that although he knew the material quite well, he flunked out. And he flunked out because he kept saying to himself over and over, what if I can't think of the answer to the question and I can't answer it and I flunk out? So the possibility of flunking, like the possibility of losing in some competition, was always before his mind.
It was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. And I fear that there are people these days who have been so shaken by what's happened in our topsy-turvy world that they focus only on an idea that is very destructive, such as, well, when the company opens up again, they won't rehire me because whatever. And if you walk into your beginning your rehire interview with the idea in your head that they're not going to hire you, it's amazing how, without your saying a word, that broadcasts itself. Say to yourself, rather, I was a good employee before this coronavirus mess, and I will return to being a good employee, and they're lucky to have me because I have a lot of experience with the company. It won't be for them like hiring somebody who's never been with the company before and doesn't know any of their procedures and doesn't know what's what. And have an idea of yourself that is very positive and sort of, I'm returning to what I was doing before and happy to do it.
Yeah, I think it's very surprising that people tend to focus on the negative and not the positive. And when you focus on the positive, boy, you feel a whole lot better. So why not feel better and, focus on the possibility of success, succeeding, things going right.
Yes. And I got over considerable anxiety once just by saying, oh, all that anxiety is silly. I'm an excellent student. There's no reason. I've been studying since the beginning of term, since actually before the beginning of term, and there's no reason I shouldn't do very well. So I'm not going to give in to this, shall we say, a little voice in her head says, you might not succeed, and
the doom and gloom.
Yes. And I really think it is useful to cultivate being rather optimistic about everything one does. I don't mean optimism to the point where it's ridiculous. And I don't mean that you don't allow 2% for the idea that you may make a mess of things. I mean, that just keeps you in reality. But many people upset themselves because they're so focused on the idea that they will lose. And we all know that part of the job of a good athletic coach is to get the team to realize that even though they face another team which has had many championships and so on, they can win.
Anything's possible. Nothing is written.
Right. And besides, it makes it so, one is so much happier, and it is so, if you think I'm very likely to win this one, it makes finishing up your preparations, whether it's study or putting together or a portfolio or whatever, much easier to do because you don't have self-doubt all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a tremendous talk. I've really enjoyed this, and again, just to kind of recap, we talked about prayer and meditation, exercise. Focusing not on what could happen, but think about something else, positive things, and these are all great positive ways that people can reduce their anxiety and be more productive and happier.
May I add that it is a very good ability to cultivate from a young age, that if that little snake in your head comes up with something negative, that you can tell that thought, no, I'm not interested in going there. Go away. And you win because you are the boss of your own mind.
I like that.
You and you alone. And someone else can try to persuade you. If you have very negative people around you, well, change the subject. Get away from having them tell you just how likely you are to fail. So,
what about next week? Do you have thoughts for next week, or maybe we should invite our viewers to submit some ideas?
Well, I would love to hear from viewers about maybe an approach that they have never heard, or something that I haven't talked about. I've been talking about coronavirus relevant subjects for a long time. Maybe they'd like me to go back to traditional psychiatry, which is taking a diagnosis and saying what that diagnosis implies and what's the best way to go about changing things.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll hear from others, and I think that sort of wraps it up. And I know I'm going to have a great weekend, and I hope all of our viewers do. And Dr. Shana, I know you will.
So, enjoy life. If you're anticipating trouble on Monday, for heaven's sakes, this is Friday. You have Saturday and Sunday to get your mind on something else. Monday will come soon enough, and you'll deal with whatever it is when it does.
Excellent. And with that, I'll say have a great weekend to all our viewers.
Indeed, and I hope you come back and see me next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.